I have the pleasure today to welcome Mark Metry from Boston, who is joining us to have a little conversation about social anxiety, stress, and some other related issues. So Mark, just to plug him a little bit, has written several books related to social anxiety. He's Forbes featured. He's got a top podcast, over 100,000 LinkedIn followers. You've done 2 TEDx's, I believe. So lots of interesting things, but mostly centered on you and some particular personal and experiences that you had. So I'd love maybe for you to say hello and maybe share with us a little bit about kind of that seminal part of your journey that launched this career that you have now. Welcome, Mark.
Yeah, absolutely. Lee, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate all of you guys tuning in. And personally for me, I never thought that this would be my life. And really the way that I explain things to people to kind of get a gist of who I am is I spent almost every single day of my life just putting my head down, trying to stay as small as possible, trying not to talk to anybody. And personally for me, I grew up in America. And when I was about in 3rd grade, my family and we moved into a small town. And what was really interesting about this small town is that, there were a lot of good people there, but this town was also, not very racially diverse. And this was also in a time in America where it was post 9/11. And so as an Egyptian American, all of a sudden I'm plunged into a new environment that's very hostile. I start to get bullied, discriminated against for the first time. And unknowingly speaking, that really shut down my brain. And I spent about 10 years of my life just trying to hide, trying to stay as small as possible. And for me, the real moment that I look back on that changed my entire life, that I don't know where I'd be without it, was when I was about 18 years old. I go off to college. And when I'm in college, my sort of neglected mental health problems and my neglected social anxiety turned into bigger problems. And next thing I knew, I was pretty severely depressed for the first time in my life. I couldn't go to sleep at night, couldn't wake up in the morning. My lifelong social anxiety turned into social isolation, stopped talking to my family, my friends. I became over 250 pounds, started doing all kinds of stuff. And next thing I knew, there was a period in my life where I was suicidal. And for me, what I would do is I lived in Boston at the time. And basically I'd go for walks in neighborhoods that I knew were not safe places to walk at night. And I would just go for walks in these neighborhoods, just in the back of my head, just fantasizing that someone would walk up and kill me. And on one of those nights, I remember I started to gain a sense of awareness around my mind. And what I mean by that is I started to realize that the thoughts that I was thinking, they were just simply thoughts in my brain. And what I mean by that is I started to think, what my brain was telling me, I'm a loser. I don't deserve anything. I'm never going to amount to anything in life. I can't talk to people. And I started to question those. And I started to ask myself, who's saying that? I don't really think so. And eventually this led me to this moment, at 2 a.m. in the middle of the night, where essentially I figured out that my brain is essentially a machine that captures my past history, and then tries to repeat it with my thoughts. And when I was 18, I realized this. I remember going home and I remember researching and trying to learn more about my brain and kind of basic neuroscience. And I started to learn wow, the average person has anywhere from 30,000 to 65,000 thoughts a day. Nobody really knows the exact number. And I started to realize that my brain is this machine that is giving me information. And I started to look more into it. And I started to realize oh, actually, you have these neurotransmitters in your brain, for example, called dopamine, called serotonin. And for example, for some people who have issues with those neurotransmitters, their motivation is impacted. Their literal vision is shifted, how happy they are. All that changes based on these chemicals. And when I realized that, that was the first time in my life where I sort of went from hey, I'm just like this person and all these bad things are happening to me and I can't do anything about it, to all of a sudden like, wait. If I have this machine in my head that is creating
Yeah.
my reality, I can change this machine and then therefore change my life. And when I slowly started to realize that, that was really the beginning of everything.
So it's in a way it's a kind of a game-changing moment where you had a little bit of meta awareness, right? And I think sometimes we get lost in our thoughts, right? And we think we are exactly our thoughts. And you had one of those moments that many of us have in different forms, right? I mean, you've described a more extreme in the sense of your health, et cetera, version of it. But I think we all have times in our lives where we're anxious about work, we're stressed about work, and we get lost in our thoughts, right? And then sometimes we need that sort of kick out that gives us a little bit of perspective that helps us realize, wait, I can actually fly this plane. It's not just the neurotransmitters run in my brain. So well, you went through some, a mixture of things, right? You had a difficult external environment in the small town, combined with the fact that you were, socially anxious, as many of us are. But you and I were talking a little bit before. I mean, what percentage of just the population has some social anxiety, and how many of us, roughly speaking, are shy, do you think?
Yeah. Well, I know the statistics for America, and in America, it's like 40% of people are reported to feeling shy on a common basis. And about like 25% of people in America are reported to have social anxiety. And if I could say one more thing too, what's really interesting is that a lot of people look at social anxiety as sort of like this like harmless, oh, I'm just shy, or oh, I'm just an introvert. And there's nothing wrong with being an introvert whatsoever. There's nothing wrong with enjoying quiet. There's nothing wrong with that at all. However, Harvard, and I talked about this in my first TEDx talk, Harvard did a meta-analysis study, and they showed that in America, social anxiety is not only the most common mental health issue, it's also the most correlated with substance abuse, social isolation, and suicide. And I look back to my past when I was 18, and I'm like, yep, socially isolated, substance abuse, and suicide, and so in a lot of the ways, social anxiety is sort of like this hidden epidemic that's happening, that's actually destroying people's mental health, how they function with their family, their friends, their careers. It's a huge problem that's very much invisible. And so it's really great to have this talk with you about it.
Yeah, and I think, if we take it into the business context, and this is something I happen to just by coincidence teach in some of the courses I've taught, and some of the alumni out there may remember those courses. We talk about kind of the different components of our mindware, and one of them is the social radar. And we all have a social radar. All of us care, to some degree about the perception of others. What are those people in the meeting thinking about my presentation, or how well or poorly have I articulated my pitch for something I'm trying to push through. And so we all have that. And some people have a more active radar than others. So in that, if you have a highly active social radar, you care, you just are more concerned with what other people think. That can generate this kind of social anxiety. I wonder you've written some books, and you have your podcast. Give us some ideas about, for all of us that work in a business context, we're socially anxious about our performance, our reputation. What are some things we can do at work to manage that so we can perform at a higher level?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I want to give you a very, very thoughtful answer that's really going to help people. So I think the first thing is, there's like this African proverb, and it says, when there is no enemy within, the enemy outside can't hurt you. And so I'm a big fan of that. And the reason why is because when I was researching, I discovered that when it comes to people having social anxiety, whether it's a low or a high amount of social anxiety, there's really like 4 layers to social anxiety. Okay. The first layer is your physical appearance. So this could mean that people get socially anxious around their skin color, like I did. People can get socially anxious around the clothes that they wear. People can get socially anxious around their weight, their body shape. Mm-hmm. The second layer is people get socially anxious around their social skills. People feel like they don't know how to introduce themselves to someone. Oh, what if this person tells me this and that? And what if I don't know what to say? And the third layer of social anxiety is people will get socially anxious around their personality. And they'll start to think like, oh, I guess I'm just like the kind of person who doesn't have anything interesting to say, or I guess I'm the kind of person who shouldn't speak in these, environments. And the last one is people will get socially anxious around anxiety itself. So what does that mean? It's like you're up on stage or you're in a class and you go to raise your hand and then the teacher calls on you. And then all of a sudden, as you're speaking, you can kind of tell your vocal cords start trembling, you start stuttering, or maybe your face blushes up. So then there's another part of your brain that's like, wait, people are looking at me and they know that I'm blushing and they know that I have anxiety. And what if people find out, and all this, and that. And so the goal of what I would recommend people to do is choose one of these layers. Let's say it's your physical appearance. Okay. And what I would say is go deep into that. Maybe it's, working with like a professional. Maybe it's you doing some journaling, doing some in-depth work on yourself. And you have to find out why you're socially anxious there in the first place. So for me personally, one of the layers of social anxiety that I built up within my physical appearance was the clothes that I was wearing. And the reason why is because I remember as a kid going to school and my parents didn't really have that much money. And yet I lived in a place where a lot of people had a lot of money. And so while kids were like showing up to school with like the latest, shiniest clothes, I was wearing the same clothes from yesterday. And so this layer of anxiety built up in me just as a kid. And so identify what that is for you. And then what you can begin to do is then you can begin to incrementally expose yourself to that fear. So when it came to my physical clothing, what I started to do is I started to I went to a clothing store, and I bought the craziest clothes I could possibly find. Like I literally found a bright pink neon shirt, bright pink tight neon shorts. I got like a pink cowboy hat. And what I would do is I would literally go to the most crowded, most public area, which was like a mall near here. And I literally just walk around. And what you're basically doing in that situation is you're literally conditioning your brain to have people stare at you and be like, what the hell is that guy wearing? And if you do that time and time and time and time and again, what's going to eventually happen is that your brain is going to build some resilience to that fear. And the next time you're just like wearing regular clothes, that anxiety from your brain isn't even going to emerge. However, one disclaimer that I have for this is before anybody does exposure therapy and what I kind of just said, and you're someone where you're like, yeah, I've had social anxiety for my entire life, I do not recommend that you start with this, because if you start with this and you haven't done anything else, make sure that your brain health is good. I also think meditation is really good. If you haven't done those other things, then if you try to expose yourself to those fears, it's probably not going to work because your brain is not going to let you. So that's what I would say. That's the only disclaimer. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe it's a question of, it's a question of degree, right? So you can start big or start small. But I think to me, the kind of the core of that idea is that people have theories, right? I mean, I think anxiety sometimes comes from theories. This is what I think that people think about me, or this is how I think that maybe I've been received when I've been doing this pitch or whatever. But what I think is often missing, especially in the workplace, right, where we don't get a lot of feedback and we're very transactional, what I think is missing often is testing those theories with data, right? And in a sense, your example of the pink, putting on bright pink clothing, is sort of testing this theory that what I wear actually matters a lot. And you went out there and it's not that you're going to wear that every day, but you went home that same day, you were fine. You went to bed, you went to sleep. Maybe you had been nervous and it was, it wasn't the most fun experience, but the point is that you tested an implicit theory about, how much does it actually matter? And it didn't matter that much at all, actually, right? I mean, you could just have forgotten that moment and moved on. So I like this idea of sort of testing these theories that we have by doing exposure, like you said, and it could be small or it could be large, depending on your readiness for it. What else? What other things can we do? Just simple things can we do in the workplace to sort of confront our social anxieties that we have the differing degrees.
Yeah, definitely. I would say, I'm sure like everyone now in the business community knows this. I'm a huge fan of mindfulness meditation. I know everyone, like, meditation is becoming popular now. Everyone has like their own theory about it. But for example, like there was a study done by Stanford University in 2017 that showed that mindfulness meditation is equally, if not more effective at treating social anxiety than medication, than a lot of other forms of treatment out there. I started to do mindfulness meditation in 2016, and my brain has never been the since. And I think specifically mindfulness meditation it works for almost everybody with social anxiety.
What are your top two benefits from that? Because different people have different experiences. What are yours?
The first one is when you sit down with your brain and you close your eyes and you focus on your breath. What you're doing is you're recalibrating your focus muscle. You're recalibrating how your brain can pay attention. That's really important because when you're out in public, when you're in a business meeting and you get social anxiety, all of a sudden your brain starts moving very fast. That's how people say, oh, my mind went blank. It's really your mind is going so fast, you don't know how to control it. Meditation gives you that ability to slow it down and then change your attention on where it's going. Why is attention so important? Attention is so important because the fuel that gives birth to social anxiety is your thoughts. So a lot of the times we're about to walk into a meeting, we're about to head into a Zoom meeting, we're about to do a talk, we're about to go meet up with some people. And what happens? Your brain starts to think, oh, well, what if Lee says this? Or what if Lee asked me this? And then I don't know what to say to this. And then what if Lee says that? And then what if your brain is like creating all these simulations of all these things that happen? The truth is, that's not productive thinking. That's not proper preparation. There is a time and a place to prepare and to, sit down and write notes and make that PowerPoint. But the truth is just thinking about something, that's the gateway for anxiety. That's going to fuel you up. So meditation is probably the biggest thing that I've had for that. And then last but not least, real quick, when it comes to meditation, is that a lot of people with social anxiety and just anxiety in general, they'll often report that they have some sort of abdominal or digestive problem. And for example, like in Massachusetts General Hospital here, they actually did a study with children that proved that if you have some kind of anxiety, there's a huge correlation with stomach, with digestive problems. And a lot of the times people don't know, oh, is there something wrong with my stomach? Is it anxiety? Is it both? Are they both of them interacting? And when you meditate, what you're actually doing is you're actually relaxing your entire body so that the amount of stress that starts to accumulate and you have like butterflies in your stomach, that also goes down as well. And so meditation is like one of those things like exercise. Like there's like 165 benefits. Everyone has their own version of it. But I would say for people to do it, and even people who are skeptical, I used to be so skeptical of it. I used to say so many, not so great things about it, but I highly recommend people to do it. And if people are trying to learn more about it, just go on Google, type in my name, Mark Metry meditation. I've like literally created so many articles. I've created my own meditation specifically for social anxiety. So I highly recommend people dig into that.
So just to maybe flip things a little bit. So we focused a bit so far in the conversation about ourselves as individuals and sort of many of the thoughts that we have, the theories that we have that about how we're being perceived in social anxiety in that context. Let's flip it around. So you said roughly 40% of people are shy and another 20%, roughly speaking, are experience some levels of social anxiety. Let's flip it to the people who are not the other 60 or 80% in the workplace, and think about, if we're managers, if we're coworkers or managers or leaders who want to create a high performance environment, an inclusive environment where everybody can thrive, then by statistically, as we've talked about already, I'm going to have people on my team that are socially anxious, right? And for sure shy as well. So what kind of things can others do who are more extroverted? What can they do to create a more inclusive environment in which people who are more shy or even have, fairly significant social anxiety can thrive? What would you recommend?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I hope our society continues to ask this question, especially in the future. So I think the biggest one for me is don't force it, right? So whether you're an extrovert, whether you're whoever, you don't have social anxiety. I see this all day, every day, where even like with parents and little kids, where someone will be shy, someone will have social anxiety, someone will be introverted, and you're in a meeting. Everyone knows that that person is introverted, and then maybe the leader and the boss, maybe for good reasons, they're like, hey, I know that Mark is really shy. So instead of him to like waiting for him to participate or waiting for him to raise his hand, let me try to like, you know, put him on. Let me try to, say, hey, what do you think, Mark? And there is a right time and a right place for that. If you're in an environment where everyone knows each other, it's kind of a safe place, that's fine. However, more often than not, when you are doing that to someone, you're actually just triggering their social anxiety. Like you are literally putting all the attention on them. You are putting the spotlight on them. And for them in that moment, the same way that it happened for me 1,000 times, your mind starts to speed up, your heartbeat starts to race, and then you just don't know what to say. And then you look like an idiot. So then now the social anxiety is even worse. And then the next time you go back to that meeting, there's a part of your mind that's like, oh, remember when that guy told you to talk and then nobody did, or excuse me, you didn't participate. So then now
Right.
everyone thinks that, so that's really the biggest thing. So I would say don't do that. Like, even though, yeah, I would
The
say,
main
even though it may seem,
recommendation
yeah,
is really don't put people on the spot. I mean,
nah,
when we talked about it, what individuals can do, it was your recommendation really was the opposite, which is actually you choose to expose yourself as you can, little by little, to challenge your theories and your thoughts. But for the other people to bring, let's say, shy or socially anxious people into the conversation, not to do that, but to actually to tackle in a much more private way, maybe helping to coach and mentor that person. What do you think about? We've got the metaverse, on its way to us. And we know from our own teaching, where we have blended programs where students are engaged in forums, we know that many people actually are much more forthcoming with their thoughts and opinions in online forums where there's that. It's not anonymous, but there's a let's say a psychological safety that doesn't exist live in class. So, does that sync with your thinking, that the idea that avatars and the difference of online forums makes it easier for people that with social anxiety?
It's a good question. I think for some people and some scenarios, it can be worse, it can be better. So I think one is when I look back to my journey and how I started to be more confident, put myself out there, I think being online helped a lot. I remember I'd put my thoughts out there on the internet, and then eventually I'd like go to events, and then people would kind of know me, and then I'd kind of know like, hey, I'm going to go to this event, and people already know of me. I know these kind of people. We're kind of similar. It's kind of a more safer environment. So I think virtual can be good as a transition, as a bridge to in real life. And I've seen a lot of people who are very, very introverted, very shy, kind of do this approach where they kind of meet people online and then they almost use that as a bridge for in-person stuff. It can be very successful. I think where it can be worse is when you have someone who is like waking up in the morning, the first thing they're doing is checking their phone. And then what's happening is that their brain sort of starts to get set on this highway of high dopamine. And so what happens is they check their phone first thing in the morning, and then they're kind of working and they're kind of like checking their email. They're checking this social media. They're checking that. They're checking this. They're checking that. That can drain your energy. And so I've seen people who are introverts, who are very active online, get almost caught up in like this digital vortex where it just leaves them drained. It leaves them depressed. It leaves their brain constantly seeking for this dopamine, which then gets them out of the present moment, gets them out of happiness. So I think that is like the real problem that I've seen happen to a lot of people, whether they're introvert or not introverted at all. And I hope that the metaverse is a people use it as a positive tool for social interactions.
Well, let's wrap. So I want to connect this to something that we care a lot about at IE Business School. Just to summarize, we talk about the next best you, and we're all sort of chasing after the next best version of ourselves. And all of us have some degree of social anxiety. I've never met anybody who just has zero nervousness before a big presentation or a big meeting or something like that. So we all contend with this to different levels. And I think you've given us a nice way to think about these ideas about that some of these things are just our thoughts and just our theories, and we need to test them, and we need to expose ourselves and incrementally work towards that next best you. And this is important, right? Because to have impact in our careers, let's say in a business context, we need to engage. To your point, we can't hide. We need to engage, and that's how we make things happen at work, right? We work in teams. We work with other people and stakeholders. So very important lesson there. And then also, I think there's a nice connection. We talk about purpose and business with purpose, and we talk about the idea that we can feel a greater sense of responsibility to use our business skills with purpose. Be that at the most macro level, working to make this a better planet through sustainable business, working for social impact through social entrepreneurship, things like that. But I think you've really connected to something that's important and dear to us, which is the idea of feeling purpose in the sense of how we work with other people, and as co-workers, as managers and leaders. We have a lot of different approaches to the way, different styles and ways of working, and there's a big percentage of people that we work with who do feel significant social anxiety, or even just a level of shyness that might actually impede their performance. So I think we all have to take that into account, and create inclusive environments in which we all can thrive. And it's been wonderful to hear your personal story, because that is probably, in its own way, very similar to many people's story. They relate to that, and you've given us some great ideas for how to deal with that. Any final closing words you'd like to share with our audience?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, first off, thank you for making it this far. And what really got me rolling down the hill, so to speak, on my own journey was my purpose. And if you look around the world today, you see all kinds of problems, the environment, the economy, inequality. There's literally thousands. Pick your crisis. And the truth is like, people who are going to solve these crises are people, and people are made of teams and leaders. And when I look around the world today, whether it's at governments or different corporations or organizations around the world, and when it comes to leadership, there are so many people out there in the leadership position who are overly confident, who say too much, who are not very inclusive. And the truth is the world literally needs people who have suffered from social anxiety, who have suffered from being shy, to speak up and get their ideas out there, because I believe that's what's going to be a huge working component that's going to help fix a lot of these crises around the world. So for me, my purpose is I'm trying to spark over 1 billion brains. I'm trying to help the next generation of entrepreneurs, artists, teachers, people who have found value in my podcast and my work, and help them break through the social anxiety, because I wouldn't be able to do anything if I still had this social anxiety. I would be able to do anything. And it has nothing to do with who I am as a person. It was just based on my, how I was born, my genetics, the luck, the draw that I had of life. And I bet there's a lot of people out there listening who are in the same scenario as I once was. And if I did it, literally anyone can do it. So Lee, thank you so much for having me on. Thank you all for listening. This has been awesome.
That's a wrap. Thank you very much, Mark Metry, for sharing your experiences and your ideas, and best wishes for the rest of your career.
Thank you. You too.